There's no doubt we are at the brink of a nuclear war, again, and not for the first time. 60 years ago, this month, or in October, we were at the hair's breadth of nuclear conflict. And the United States was ready for a nuclear war, and in fact had Kennedy's advisors prevailed on Kennedy to launch an attack against Cuba in the Cuban Missile Crisis. As all of his advisors said, we would have had a full nuclear war. And we're playing with this fire right now. Putin is not bluffing. And Zelensky is completely wrong to say we're going to militarily defeat Russia and push them out of Crimea. Because if that happens, there will be a nuclear war before that ends. And we should tell him that. But we don't speak the truth either in the international scene. The Ukrainians are reckless in their rhetoric. Okay, they're fighting an aggressor, but we cannot have a nuclear war over this issue. And we have no plans to avoid one right now. From Russia's point of view, this is a core security challenge. And Crimea means a lot to Russia, more than we perhaps understand. And so this loose talk is absolutely reckless and provocative. And the Ukrainian leadership says, well, there may be a nuclear war. That's reckless talk too. It's all over the place right now. Even Israel, which by the way is the 10th nuclear power, just they don't say it, but come on. We have 10 nuclear powers. The Prime Minister of Israel stood in the podium and threatened Iran with war last week. I was sitting right in front of him in the General Assembly. That's also reckless. So we have a lot of reckless talk all over the place. Nothing's under control right now, nothing. And since everything is lies and messaging and sound bites, it's even worse than usual because everybody's pandering for a news cycle. No one is being sensible and reasonable behind the scenes even. There is no behind the scenes. There's only the pandering of the news cycle.
Well, this is what, sorry. Just to follow up, if I can, because as I remember the Cuban Missile Crisis, which we still debate, basically there was a kind of secret deal, private deal, between the Americans and Khrushchev, so that the Russians, the Soviets, pulled their missiles out, and we pulled our missiles out of Turkey.
Yes.
And we pretended that had nothing to do with anything.
Right.
Do you see that, is there a potential for this kind of conversation in the current conflict? Or as you say, do you think people are just talking past one another? I mean, is there serious diplomacy? I don't know.
Yes.
I mean, going on, yeah.
The best book written on this topic was written a couple of years ago called Gambling with Armageddon by the historian Martin Sherwin. I recommend everybody read it. It's brilliant. He passed away the following year. He had spent his whole life on nuclear diplomacy. And this is absolutely the most remarkable hour-by-hour account of what happened in the Cuban Missile Crisis. The Cuban Missile Crisis was ended by compromise. Unfortunately, and I love President Kennedy and wrote a book about him about the year following the Cuban Missile Crisis in his pursuit of the Partial Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. But Kennedy did one thing which damaged the follow-up. He kept secret the fact that the crisis was ended by diplomacy. It was not ended by a showdown. But in the public imagination, it was ended by a showdown that Kennedy won and that Khrushchev lost. And this is untrue, and it was compromise that saved the world. You want to save the world right now? It's easy. Biden picks up the phone and calls Putin and says, we're not expanding NATO to Ukraine. That saves the world. That is what this war is about and has been about for 30 years. And what we're told is lies. And if Biden wants to stop this, he can stop this. But they don't want to stop it because it has been a project of the US government to expand NATO since 1992, and a project of American neoconservatives to absolutely expand American power everywhere in the world since 2002. And so we're in a crisis because we have nuclear superpowers confronting each other over core security issues and not telling the truth about it. NATO has no business being in the Black Sea, in Crimea, in Georgia. It's reckless, and the Europeans know it, but they won't say it, because European leaders have told me this for years, how much they disagreed with George W. Bush Jr. in 2008 in Bucharest when he pushed NATO enlargement. They knew it was reckless.